And good afternoon, racing fans. Welcome to another edition of Club Hawthorne Live. Jim Miller and Emily Gullikson down here in the PointsBet Sportsbook at Hawthorne Racecourse. Emily, this is a great venue. We got TVs all lined up behind the cameras. We got TVs behind us with sports and racing on. Everything in one location. This is a beautiful site. Great place to be today.
I love it. I mean, I feel comfortable. We were here yesterday, so it's nice to kind of be in the same place. The racetrack behind us. It's just always a great feeling when you walk into the racetrack, see all the memorabilia, walking up the stairs. I love it.
I love it here, too. This is awesome. This is really a cool place to hang out. You have so much going on. MLB season kicked off yesterday. You got NCAA Women's Final Four going on, followed by the Men's Final Four this weekend. So much action to take place. We got two major Derby preps this weekend with the Arkansas Derby and the Florida Derby. We're going to cover the Arkansas Derby a little bit later on in the show because I think Forte is going to be 2-5 in the Florida Derby and probably win that race rather easily, too, but we'll see.
It looks like a legitimate favorite in that race. It's his race to lose, that's for sure.
It does for sure. But we are covering three different racetracks today. We're covering Gulfstream Park, Tampa Bay Downs, and a race from Aqueduct as well. But before we jump into the show, is there 9 minutes to post for that race at Gulfstream? Real quickly, we want to tell everybody that our online contest here at Hawthorne Racecourse starts out on Sunday. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. It's an NHC qualifier, and it's free to get into, Emily.
Yeah, I mean, what's to complain about? Right. Why not do it? Get into the tournament. It's races 4 and 7 at Hawthorne, mythical $2 win play show, and follow along with the Hawthorne racing. It's a good way to just kind of also jump into the racing here as well.
Yeah, and to follow along with that, and you definitely do want to follow along with the racing here at Hawthorne because we have the lowest takeout in the country on win place and show wagers, just 12%. And for those watching our races, they've seen some value over the course of the meet thus far. It's more money in their pocket, too.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can compare to last year or even just do the math as far as the takeout, and it's more on each bet, and players are responding, at least from what I can tell looking at the pools. We had a great day yesterday.
Yep. Yeah, we did have a great day yesterday as well, and as we mentioned, the 4-point play is going on. $4 Sam Adams right there at the bar, literally 15 feet to the left of us here at Hawthorne. We do have that taking place for each tournament round as well. All right, let's go right into the racing action today as we are covering 5 races in 1 hour, and it's a real-time handicapping, looking into those races and then commenting during the course of the races here. There's 7 minutes to post for race number 2 at Gulfstream Park. This is a race that came off the turf. It goes 1 1/16 on the synthetic surface here. We're going to take out the 1 Aero Blue. It's only a field of 6 to line up in the spot, and it looks like they're actually a little bit behind right now from the looks of their screen because they're still talking in the paddock, and it's 7 minutes to post. But that's something that's kind of a tendency a little bit at Gulfstream Park. We do it a little bit too, come out a little bit later and kind of time it going into the race. It's done for a reason too. You want to avoid all the other racetracks and get as much exposure as you can as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see in this first race, which first race for us,
Yep.
but upcoming race 2. Looks like a heavy favorite in this race. As you mentioned, there is the surface switch in play, but a lot of these horses in this field have run either on the synthetic already or run on the dirt, run on the turf. And I don't think there's anybody, especially since we're talking, it's pretty close to a maiden claiming event. They're not necessarily horses that absolutely are proven quality, classy turf horses. So probably a little bit more versatile as far as the surface.
Yeah, looking at the board, we always say we want to start out with the favorite and kind of go from there. I was surprised to see 6-5 here on the 6th and never been wrong. I'm not saying this horse couldn't go favored. I thought this was actually a relatively evenly matched bunch. If you're a person that's a buyer speed figure player, Never Been Wrong's 2 buyers are 56 and 63. The horse that was listed at 30-1 in this race, the 3 Ballroom Eyes, had a 58 buyer in that last out, and that horse is 13-1. I think 7-5 is way too short on this favorite. So just starting out at just initial impressions, I think you have to look somewhere else.
I think at least you have to consider that. You have to consider that number and why people are gravitating there. I think that's important too, is it's not just the number, but why are people betting the horse? Is it for the right reasons, for the wrong reasons? And try to figure out why the action is taken there. Sometimes you gravitate there, you can see both the public handicappers on screen pick the horse, and maybe that's why the horse is getting a little bit of attention. But going back to the debut race, which was the time that the horse was in for the tag, was a $20,000 maiden claiming tag. And as far as the race parts, pretty similar to today. And they did have the race flow in their favor, closing into a pretty fast pace. Now, they did have the opposite dynamic in their most recent start, racing uncovered and going that longer distance of ground in that race. So maybe that's why the public is landing there, and connections with Saez aboard. I think those factors tend to take a lot of wagering support. You end up seeing shorter odds than maybe what the horse should be.
Yeah, exactly. And really 3-2 is very short. I think the one I would probably start out with is the 2. That's Downburst. This is a horse, Jose Ortiz, in the sale today. A horse that's definitely familiar with the synthetic surface as well. You get back to some of those races last summer into the fall. They were on the synthetic at Gulfstream, and they were legitimate races. The horse was up close to the pace throughout. Was able to run on a little bit late. Yes, you're 10 times in and still a maiden. That is something that is a little bit concerning. When it's 2, 3, 4 races, that's okay. When you start to get a little bit further down the line and you're looking at 9, 10 races, you tend to wonder, a horse is just finding ways to lose or just not good enough to win. I guess that's the thing you have to be concerned with a little bit.
Yeah, it's one of the things with using optics is we'll assign an optics figure grade, and what that is just like it's an overall performance. So you can kind of see where horses stack up in terms of class. And looking at Downburst, they've never really run a bad race. They've never really had an excuse, but they just run evenly, like C+, B-, which is right below that winning type race. They're running at this level, so really no excuse. Type of horse that what you see is what you can get, and if they fall into the right trip, that might be another reason why the 6 is taking money, because Saez was on the 2 last out. But to your point, maybe the rider change is just what kind of this horse needs, just to shake things up a little bit.
Yeah, and the horse, you're looking at it on the track right there, and actually looks pretty good on track for Downburst, and you're sitting at a little bit better number.
Front wraps.
Yeah, 3-1. That is something to take note of as well. All right, looking at the grid here, because your optics grid, you have a field of 6. What is it telling you pace scenario-wise? Is there anybody that's really a standout on the front end, or are you kind of looking at something where things might just be bunched up a little bit and kind of muddied up this race?
You know, it's really hard to tell as far as looking at the plot. It does look like there's some contention as far as there being like a speed rate, horses that have done their better running on or near the lead, but things change with the synthetic surface, with the class. Again, you got those riders, the rider changes in play. The horse that's on the screen right now, the 5 horse, is one that's worth a mention. They're coming out of a debut race at Tampa, so making that circuit switch is like it's a big jump up in class, and even in terms of race par, is a big jump up in class. But going back to that race, Back Off Me was pretty green, had some trouble at the start, and then showed some run in spots as well. And the top 2 finishers of that race finished together at the wire, and Back Off Me was continuing to run on and showed some interest. So as far as there being just sort of a new face, if you're looking at this field and saying, I know what we're going to get from the 2, I know what we're going to get from the 7, I don't want to take the price on the 6, the 5 just kind of jogged by the track in a warm-up right now. Sort of the unproven, unexposed horse in the field.
And it's really weird because you look at it, the daily racing form only has 2 drills going into that debut. I mean, you've normally seen horses 6, 8, 10, 12 workouts. Here in Illinois, we require 3 workouts, one of them being a gate work before you're even allowed to start. It was 2 works, and let's throw this horse in the gate. And then all of a sudden, like you said, there's every reason why the horse should have raced greenly in there and had all sorts of issues. This horse may not have been real experienced either.
Yeah, it's tough to tell because prior to that, it looked like the horse was in the. I'm just pulling it up right now, but was working out at the training center, so it is hard to know exactly
what did they
how
really
many
get into this horse.
Yeah, how many works there are, if there was something in between, and then it does have a couple works at Tampa, one in January, one in February, but yeah, There might have been a lot more purpose. It's super hard to tell, but off the debut, you could project some upside. There's the horse on the track right now.
It's just, and we know the jock, Jose Lopez, the guy that's ridden here on the Chicago circuit for many years. He's very good with finishing with racehorses. He's always good on the turf, so I'm sure they were hoping this one was going to be on the grass. But yeah, it's just, you look at it, this horse was a $4,500 purchase in the Keeneland sale. You look at the 7 horse, the horse was a $150,000 purchase. But again, when you're handicapping the race and you say, okay, I can't go with a horse that's 0 for 10 in a maiden race, which I'm not going to. I can't go with a horse that's 0 for 9 in a maiden race, so I'm going to stay away from the 7. It does kind of start to trim things down a little bit. I want to touch on the 3 just real briefly here, Emily, if you don't mind, because this is a horse that I think probably moves up with the move over to the synthetic. The last race on paper was against a maiden allowance company. It was on the synthetic. It wasn't a terrible race by any means. I mean, finished 5th out of that field, but it was a route race on the synthetic. I think they're better off on this surface.
And was wide. And
Yeah.
you're wide going 9.5 furlongs. So
right. How much ground are you losing there? Right.
Yeah, I mean, the horse might have run 12 furlongs that day, so I don't think fitness is going to be in there. I think it's, I mean, taking kind of a shot with some of these horses that are a little bit unproven. The one thing I will say, just kind of going back as far as the 7, a horse that has had plenty of chances, but this will be their first time at this lower level, and maybe that's what they need. And then again, as I mentioned, the optics grades earlier, this horse does have a B recorded, and that B was recorded with the synthetic race back on January 6th of 2022. So we have to go back a little bit for that race, but could be another factor in there that just is that, again, looking for kind of those subtle changes at this point.
The way I envision things here, too, the best shot for the 7 Golden Belief looks like actually sending this horse away and trying to make the top there. That's where those 2 best races on paper tend to come from. So I think they're going to go. I guess the question is whether or not Jose Ortiz sends downburst with this one. If he doesn't and Golden Belief scampers away early on, this is a horse that has all the potential in the world to seal this race. We talked about the 2 a couple times. You make a very good note here with downburst. Well, the horse looks good on the track. You also have the front wraps on for the first time after 10 lifetime starts. That can be a little bit of a negative as well.
Yeah. Again, you're just looking for any kind of subtle changes. I mean, the horse is taking money in the pools and is currently his second choice. Just took another drop from 3-1 to 5-2. Now back up to 3-1 as I say that.
Yeah, so I think the way that I would look at this race, I would definitely stay away from the 6 only because of the price. I would probably stay away from the 2 just for the fact that it's 10 starts. The 7 horse intrigues me a little bit pace scenario-wise in here. If I'm going to play the race, I'm probably looking at the 3 in here just for the fact that this is a horse that is going to be better on the synthetic surface, and you're sitting at 10-1. It's the longest price in a short field, so maybe we get a trip.
Yeah, I don't even know if we ended up discussing the 4 at all, but maybe one of those other horses just kind of goes to him. Yeah, just because we didn't discuss it, and that's the way it works. But it's second off the layoff. Going back to that March 1st race, really didn't have much of an excuse. In fact, had a pretty favorable trip sitting in the pocket. But if you are making an excuse, you could say the first start back off the layoff, the horse is a little bit short, and maybe of those horses, at least you have some proven form on the horse and even some back numbers. Those races on the turf on the Naira circuit, the horse looks good as well. And maybe of those horses that have a little bit more foundation, maybe she's kind of sneaking away.
Yeah, they're walking into the gate right now for race number 2 at Gulfstream. After this, we're probably going to shift over and talk a little bit about the Arkansas Derby because there's still 14 minutes to post from race number 3 at Tampa Bay Downs, and that is a turf race, so they tend to take a little bit longer as well. But for those who haven't tuned into Club Hawthorne Live in the past, the one thing you can make note of is we will be commentating on what we see throughout the course of the race. The 6, that's not really a great sign to see of the horse taking a little bit of time to load into the gate either there, Emily.
No, and again, this is the benefit of doing this stuff live, talking these races through, going back through the odds, going back through the field, because it's the point in time where you have the most amount of information. You have the odds, you can look at these horses on the track, you can see them in the gate, you can see the will pays and the odds, but it seems like everybody got out of the gate well as they head into that first turn.
We're going to see if the 7 does try to clear, and if the 2 takes back. As we mentioned, that's going to be your best shot for Golden Belief, is to go out there and try to make the lead and take them the whole way around. They're relatively bunched up early on, so we'll see what the fractions are. I wasn't a huge fan of how the 3 got out of there, but the running style is not going to put that horse in the mix anyway. I'm guessing they're not going that fast. No, 24-4 for the opening quarter, so they're just kind of sauntering along there onto the backside.
Yeah, it's interesting how the riders have been riding the synthetic. I think they still try to ride it like the turf, and I think that even handicappers try to handicap and say, the synthetic is like the turf.
Yeah.
The synthetic is the synthetic.
Yeah.
It's different, so it's not necessarily where you can kind of take hold and expect a kick, but at the same time, it's not so much like the dirt where you can go out and wing it and go like 21 and hope to hold and clear either.
Yeah, I'm curious. My 3 horse actually got off the inside, and they're deciding to go wide here. So the 5 looks like it's done. Who is that? The 4 moving up? Yeah, that's the 4 moving up as well. The 7, I mean, had the lead, and they didn't go fast, 49-1. But the 4 is moving up on the outside. 7's still digging in, so we'll be curious to see how they set down here in the lane.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to come down to kind of the ride finishing ability and which horse is going to win. But it seems like the 4 on the outside having that momentum. And again, glad we kind of went back through and mentioned that horse.
Yeah.
Almost snuck right back through and went on the winner. Again, 7 starting to fight back on the inside.
Yeah.
The 4 getting the advantage. The 6, the favorite,
Yeah, it wasn't going to be the 6, right?
But yeah. 4.76 as they cross the wire.
Yeah, 4.76 there in race number 2 at Gulfstream Park. Again, the 4 Miscreant, and like you mentioned, I'm glad we jumped in on that at the end, or we would have just been sitting off the horse that was the winner. The 6 at 8 to 5, I mean, the horse didn't run a bad race by any means. The horse ran just fine. It's kind of the race you kind of expected, but 8 to 5 didn't provide any value.
And when you have the favorite, you want to have the favorite, like as we talked about, you mentioned the Florida Derby, where you have Forte, who's like got the edge on class, he's got the edge on speed. You know, he fits as the favorite. It's like the 6, those horse can win, but there's no overwhelming edge over the other runners.
You want to be
in the field.
overly confident that horse is getting the job done, and neither of us had that confidence there. But the 4 horse gets the job done there at 5 to 2 in a race number 2 at Gulfstream. All right, there are 12 minutes to post for the 3rd at Tampa Bay Downs. So before we jump into that race, Emily, let's shift over and take a look at the Arkansas Derby. This is on tomorrow's card, $1.25 million. You go a mile and 1/8, 100-point Derby prep here. They pay down to the first 5 spots, or not pay down, but points awarded to the first 5 spots. You're taking a look at the field right there. Your favorite at 5 to 2 is the 8, a Reincarnate from the barn of trainer Tim Yakteen. So let's start there. You and I were doing a pool party when the Rebel was run. It was a very sloppy day. Confidence Game got a dream trip. Reincarnate did not by any means. And this is a horse that I think with Claire Saline, probably a deserving favorite in this race.
Yeah, I mean, going back and watching the trip, it wasn't ideal, but at the same time, there were some favorable characteristics. Just the way that the race shape played out. Breaking slow tend to play in his favor, the way that the race was kind of slowing late. So the fact that he was moving up, you could say it was partially flow aided. Was he ever getting to the top 2? I don't know. You can go back and watch
Probably
it.
Not in that race, no.
Probably not. Yeah, so I understand where Reincarnate is favored because he kind of just feels like that horse right now. But when it really comes down to it, it's like I don't necessarily know he's the horse I want to take at a short price, but he's the one that I do expect to be favored by the public because he does feel obvious. I'm not against him, but again, it's one of those where it's like I have. Like there's 6 up here. I have some reservations at a short price, and maybe there's some opportunities elsewhere.
Yeah, and there might be some opportunities elsewhere. There were some horses that were intriguing to me just for some of their moves, some of the choices they made. Let's go to the one right next to that, the 7, Rocket Can. Rocket Can's 4 to 1 in the morning line here. And I guess the question is, you just ran what was a pretty good second behind Forte. You could have run second behind Forte and stayed in Florida again. You might win here. You might run second. But I was a little surprised that Rocket Can didn't just stay at Gulfstream Park to run there. Were you at all?
I think that they're, obviously getting a little bit closer to Kentucky. The owner of of Rocket Can is sort of more of an Arkansas type owner, so maybe wanting to be there. And the fact that, we don't want to run second. We want to win. So let's take a shot. Let's see where he goes, and let's see how he does on another different surface, getting him a little bit more acclimated. So I don't know. I don't mind the move that much. I think he's in a good part of his form cycle. He has the 2 starts. This will be his 3rd start off the layoff. I watched his work since the Fountain of Youth. He looks great. Like he's holding great condition. So coming into the race well, has plenty of stamina, plenty of foundation on his side, and does have the class test running behind Forte.
Frank Fletcher said there's 2 races he wants to win, and he didn't know which was more important, the Arkansas Derby or the Kentucky Derby. So that could be the reason that you get that move for Rocket Can as well. Moving onward to the horse that ran second in the Rebel, the 10 horse, Red Route 1. This is a really interesting move because the horse settled back early on. I thought ran on pretty well late to finish second. I don't know how much I like the addition of blinkers right now in a $1.2 million race. And I was on with Howard Kravitz and crew last night. Some of the guys mentioned, are they just trying this now to figure out if the horse wants to run in them for the Derby? And this is more of an experiment and an experiment in a $1.2 million race. Well, I mean, what do you make of blinkers on?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell, right, without kind of knowing. But if they are going to experiment, it is kind of now or never, because in the Derby is when you definitely don't want to do it.
Right.
And so I think that they are experimenting. They want to keep them a little bit closer to the pace, and I think they kind of wanted to last out as well. But again, the race shape just went a little bit fast early. Red Route 1 got detached from the field early on. So not only are they going to make the blinker change, but also Gaffalione getting back aboard. And Gaffalione did have Red Route 1 a little bit closer to the pace, a little bit more engaged when he rode him back in the previous race. So I think just making those changes, to me, it at least suggests intent, and then we'll see going forward if it makes the overall impact of change.
Sure, it makes complete sense. All right, looking at the plot for this race, Emily, you have an 11-horse field in here. Pace scenario-wise, I didn't see a ton of pace. I thought it was maybe either Harlow Cap or Two Eagles River, but I didn't see things being overly quick early on, so you might have to rate a little bit closer. Is that what the plot shows too?
Yeah, absolutely. There's horses that want to be on or near the lead, but it does appear, looking at the quadrant 1 in that first call where you read the plot going left to right, that the 3 and 4 are in that position out in front. And the 3, Harlow Cap, is worth a mention because he was one of those horses that was up close to the pace in the Risen Star, and that was a very fast pace. So he's a little bit of a flow upgrade, and one of the other horses for Steve Asmussen mentioning they have the closer in the field, so you would expect Harlow Cap to at least be out there early.
Yeah, we're going to find out if the Risen Star was actually a little bit better race than what we saw, because we just saw the third place finisher of that race, Two Phils, come back and win the Jeff Ruby Stakes impressively last week. You have Harlow Cap in here, who finished 6th in the Risen Star. You have Angel of Empire in here, who was the winner of the Risen Star. They didn't go to the Louisiana Derby. They're coming over here for this. So much like what you see out of Rocket Can, not staying at Gulfstream Park, these are kind of those similar moves too. They could have easily stayed in New Orleans, and it wasn't a great race. Kings Barnes ran well and won on the front end, but there was no world beater in there. I was a little surprised by some of those moves also too.
You know what I think it is Angel of Empire, if you look at his running lines, he's a horse that tends to need a little bit more time between starts, and so maybe just that race, even last week, would have been a little bit shorter. I mean, he's running on 42 days rest, which is the shortest he's ever run on before, believe it or not. So, they're going to be experimenting with that as well, and how he holds his form without that extended period of time between starts.
Sure, and taking a look at the field now, there are some prices here as the horses are walking on the track for the third race at Tampa, so we'll get to that in a second. The one other horse I want to mention was the one, Bourbon Bash. Dave Kaplan and I talked about this horse a little bit yesterday on the Derby show. Bourbon Bash from the barn of Wayne Lucas. Ray Gutierrez, guy who just had a very good meet in New Orleans, coming over to ride this horse. I didn't think it was a bad race in the Rebel by any means. I tend to wonder if this horse actually could be a little bit better if the track is a fast track on Saturday.
He was interesting. I mean, overall, I think the big test for him is class, and it is stamina. That's the major hurdle. As far as the Grade 2 Rebel, was a sneaky trip because he made that middle move when the pace was quick, and he was showing run in spots. Now, he just didn't quite look on the level of his competition, but that race should definitely have him fit, and Lucas is having a great meet. So he's one I included for the underneath spots. I think he is a big long shot to win this race. But to me, those are the big hurdles that I see for him. It's just in terms of class, in terms of stamina. But I think there's a little bit more there than what it might look like on paper.
Yeah, we'll be curious to see how things unfold there for the Arkansas Derby. Again, 100 points to the winner for the Kentucky Derby, but a good, solid race going as the feature on the card at Oaklawn Park on Saturday. All right, Emily, horses are on the track here for race number 3 at Tampa Bay Downs. This is a race on the turf course. It's interesting because they're off the grass today at Gulfstream Park. They're on the turf over at Tampa, and the sun's shining at both places. But a mile and a 16th, maidens again. Take out the 4, Ski Country. Take out the 7, Antonov in here. So you have a field of 7 to line up. Right now, your favorite on the board on the outside is Whiskey Mac. Antonio Gallardo aboard this runner today for trainer Darian Rodriguez. 3-2. So let's start with Whiskey Mac. And here again, much like that race at Gulfstream, doesn't seem to be that huge of a standout to the remainder of the field to me.
Well, I mean, I could say that this one maybe does have a little bit more of an edge over the others. Just in terms of speed figures, he did pair up B-grade efforts at the level in his 2 most recent starts, and he's been running at this level. So I can understand where he is positioned as that favorite in this race. He has a little bit more of an edge over some of the others that have run. So I could see it, but at the same time, not overly excited about this type of horse that did, come up a little bit short despite running some pretty solid efforts.
Yeah, and just kind of looking at the board, you look at that race where Whiskey Mac ran second back on March the 4th. The horse that ran third in that race, the 5, Ballandine, is currently sitting at 8-1. So you're looking at 3-2 compared to 8-1. And this was a horse that was stalking the pace in there and was just a little bit off the rail kind of the whole way around. You do get a rider change in this spot, which I don't know if it's a positive or not. Coming into here, it's going to an 8% jock. Mike Deany is a guy that we've known on the Chicago circuit as well. He's always very good with turf horses. But at 8-1, I'd be a little bit more intrigued by a horse like Ballandine compared to the 3-2 price on Whiskey Mac.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can start getting creative outside. If you're not crazy about the 9, you want to look outside, you can start making cases for horses that might not necessarily be the quote-unquote best horse in the race, but they're offering enough value to play. I'm giving a look to number 2, Even the Wind. That debut, he kind of gave up his race at the start, was very green out of the gate, had a lot of trouble, and then he was racing under a massive hold. Did show some run, made a middle move before they weren't going to win that day, and they're going to come back here. I wish it was a little bit shorter than the 41 days, but maybe this horse just need a little bit extra work. But the type of horse that we haven't seen the best of yet, and off that race, would be willing to play him in this start, because if he does run well, he could run third, and then he's going to be a super short price next time. And then looking at the running styles of the horse in this race, again, I don't know the running style of Even the Wind, just given that start. Maybe he has more tactical speed than what he's shown, but at least these horses in the field, what they have shown, they tend to be on or near the lead for their best effort. And if Even the Wind, to me, seems like a horse that has some finishing ability, could get the right trip, and also finding a class change, because he's going to run for the maiden claiming tag in the second start, and currently sitting at 16-1.
Yeah, you see him just walk onto the turf course. Again, they got to walk up the chute to the starting gate, so there's still a little bit of time to get your wagers in here for the third at Tampa Bay Downs. There seems to be a decent amount of pace. Whiskey Mac won't be too far out of it. Hello Sucker looks to show some speed. Wrecking Ball showed speed in their last out and adds Lasix today. The 3 Street Cop Officer is a horse that rated close in that last out. And then you got to run into the name horse here. And here's what I bring up. The 6, Jeter and Judge. Yankee fans are going to be all over this horse because of Derek Jeter and Aaron Judge. How many people are going to play it based on names for a first time out? John Turnover, the trainer, 17% first time out as well. And the horse is taking some action here. I tend to wonder how much of it is based on the racehorse, how much of it is based on the connections, how many people that just sit there and play names as well and are baseball fans on day 2 of the MLB season. You never know, but you're looking at 5-2 on the board right now, Emily. Anything can happen in the racing.
You're asking the wrong girl. I don't know much about the sports ball, but yeah, that certainly makes sense where people do play the names.
They do. I mean, you'd be shocked the amount of people that will go out there.
No, I know that they
names, colors, gray horses, you name it. It's one of those things. But yeah, you're looking again 5-2. First Lasix, and here's a completely different thing from what we saw from that horse at Gulfstream in that last race that had the 2 listed workouts. This is a horse that has a bunch of workouts leading into the debut, but you're getting that backing for connections that are pretty good. The horse was only a $32,000 purchase, and you're looking at some others like Whiskey Mac, who was a $140,000 purchase out of the OBS sale. Everybody's always high on their horses early on in their career. I don't know if I go 5-2 on the first timer in here. But looking at the board, as you see again, they walk up here, they walk up the chute, then they get behind the gate, then they circle around a little bit behind the gate. So we definitely have a little bit of time here. After this, we're going to go over to race number 3 at Gulfstream Park, which is currently at 11 minutes to post, but we saw their timing for race number 2. But Emily, going back to here, if we're looking at how we want to play the race, I can't take 6-5 on Whiskey Mac just because there's no value, even if the horse could win. I think maybe fair value would have been somewhere around maybe 2-1 with the scratches with the morning line at 5-2. I just think 6-5 is a little bit short for me.
Yeah, I mean, would you be playing like thinking the horse is most likely to finish first or second? So
yes, I would probably play underneath an exacta. Yep.
With what, the 5 and
I would.
I mean, I'm using a 2. That to me is just I don't know how good that horse is, but today's the day to find out. So yeah, just trying to hook up with the price. It's just not a scenario where you'd be playing 9-6 or even 9-1.
I'd probably take the 3
good,
prices. I'd take 2-5-8 and hook it up with the 9 in here. Only because the 8 we know is going to show speed because they were committed to the front end in that last out and got out there. The 2, like you mentioned, there's a lot of positives out of that last race, even though it doesn't look like it on paper. And then the 5, only for the fact that I thought the 5 ran a very respectable race in that last out, and I don't think is deserving of 9-1. I think the horse is being dismissed a little bit over some others. So I would probably hook those 3 up and then maybe put Whiskey Mac underneath in the exactas.
Yeah, this is the difference, kind of cycling back to comparing in the Arkansas Derby the trouble of Reincarnate versus the trouble of a horse like this 2 here at Tampa, Even the Wind, because the Reincarnate is the type of trouble that everybody saw, right? It was pretty obvious. They even did an inquiry because we were watching
we were watching hoping it wasn't us, right?
And the Bourbon Bash was the one that went in there, and I think I even said to you, I was like, Bourbon Bash played defense and
for confidence game, right?
Helped us out a little bit in there.
Oh yeah.
But a horse like Even the Wind. It's one that you have to go back and just kind of watch. And then it does take a big projection to just kind of say, I'm willing to draw a line through that race. But again, it's not obvious. I'm not sure what the short comments.
No, they put nothing in there. It has bump break.
No bid. And If the horse is under a hold, not let to run, of course, they're not going to have much of a bid.
And we need to watch this horse closely because this is an Illinois-bred horse, bred by Team Block, owned by Team Block. Jim Gulick has it now in Florida because they want to get some races on the turf. We might see this horse come back here to Hawthorne for that next out. So you watch the horse like Even the Wind a little bit more closely. Now, the one thing about Tampa Bay Downs, because they do start out of the chute, they come in and then make kind of a tight left turn onto the main course. So horses are going to have to try to find a little bit of position out of the starting gate there before they head onto the main course, because if you're on the inside and you don't have that position, you can get shuffled back a little bit. So we will see how things unfold, but it looks like 3 more to load. They're still in the walking ring at Gulfstream Park, so a little bit of time. So far, everybody seems to be loading just fine, though, Emily.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up about the connections, because
and Chris Bach will do that. He'll send it to other trainers, even though they list it as own.
Yeah, I mean, if the horse is, ready to run and getting some foundation and doing well, and getting some fitness, you got to, run where there's grass. We don't have grass yet. And knowing that we're starting off the meet, there's plenty of places to run here, but it looks like they're all in the gate.
Let's see how everybody gets out. A little bit of activity out of Hello Sucker, the 8 there.
And the 9 kind of got into it a little bit.
And the 6 completely missed the break, so Jeter and Judge the first timer, and then that's understandable. It'll happen.
Yeah, the 2 was off a little bit slow again, but a little bit better. And
there's the 8 on the top. Yep.
As projected, the 8 making the lead, the 9 rating off. They're going to let this horse kind of go on the front end, and at 17-1, they should definitely take advantage of it. You want to kind of keep some distance, especially from your quote-unquote main rival in the race.
And Gallardo almost looks like he's trying to keep the 9 from going. The horse was a little bit keen to go, 23-3 through the opening quarter there. Looking behind the horses there, it looks like the 3 settled in 4th. The 5 horse that I like settle in 5th. If they're somewhere in 47 and change to the half, it could be a race where somebody could come from out of it a little bit here too.
Let's hope so, because I see the 2 stalking pretty clear right now. Still looks to have some run, so we'll just see if there's enough pace. 48, not bad, but is going to have to be a little bit much the best.
That's a really good job by the rider on the leader.
Yeah.
He got out there, got that position, got the lead.
Getting a little rank though.
He is, yeah, and we're going to find out. The 5's coming up the inside.
9's getting a trip. 5's been able to save ground throughout, but the chalk could be pretty tough as they just took over the lead with the 8 backing up. The 1 is in chase mode.
The 2's coming a little bit on the inside here.
Got some run on the inside.
So the 5 got stopped up a little bit there behind the 8 who was stopping. Now he gets out in the clear. The 2 followed right behind, and the 2's angling out 4 wide there, and I think he does have some run, even if he runs on for 3rd or 4th.
Yeah.
But the 9's on the lead, and it looks like the 5's going to try to come in between there.
The 1 trying to run I think the 1's going to get him. Yeah. The 1's going to be able to take over. And 9 just no finish once again on that left lead. A good effort from both the 5 and the 2 finishing in that blanket for the Miners. Yeah. But I mean, watching races.
But that's
I do it a little bit in my spare time. But it's really like to play this game, you got to be doing that kind of replay work, because that horse, looking at him on paper, you would never project that it had as much run as they did. Right. And with a better break, maybe a little bit more pace, we'll see. But I think maybe one we haven't seen all from this year. I think we'll see him out on this turf course.
And what you're going to see now, this is going to be the 4th straight time that Whiskey Max runs second. This horse could be a horse that's going to burn a whole lot of money, because they're going to go out there next time out probably at the same level, probably be favored again, and probably get beaten again. So that's a horse that you play underneath, and then it's who you hook up with. Wrecking Ball, a good trip. Yeah, no problems at all either with the efforts out of the 5 Ballandine or out of the 2 Even the Wind. I'll be curious to see if Even the Wind off that start, if they're going to make one more start at Tampa, if they're going to head up Hawthorne way. And the other thing that you may see too, because it's an Illinois bred, you may see this horse come back in an Illinois bred made an allowance race here on the turf. So you're protected again, especially off running for the 32 in there. So a horse like Even the Wind could be a little bit intriguing, because that was definitely a big step up today, a vast improvement off that debut race.
Yeah, I mean, the debut, you just draw an excuse through it. Just the way that race went out, we can encourage people, they can go back and watch it and see for themselves. But the horse was just, from the start, under a hold, never given a chance to run. So it's hard to there's a lot of improvement off that, right?
Yep, a lot of improvement for sure. 1952 for that order of finish there in race number 3 at Tampa Bay Downs. All right, horses are on the track for the 3rd at Gulfstream Park, so we're going to head over there to Gulfstream. We're going 5.5 furlongs in this spot. You scratch the 7, that's our fortune cookie as you're looking at the horses on the track right now. Even money on the 5, and again, It's an 11-time starter and still has yet to break the maiden. So right off there, I am not playing even money on the 5, regardless of what you see. But speed figure-wise, it's understandable. Figures-wise, the horse is a standout in here and looks to be much better than the rest. But again, it's 11 starts, and the horse hasn't run since mid-October of 22, Emily. To me, there's some question marks with the horse as well.
Yeah, that's pretty tough. I mean, it's also a horse that's been running throughout Woodbine,
Yep.
and with the Woodbine meet now just a few weeks away. They start in the middle of April. Maybe a prep. They're able to race protected in here. All the races back at Woodbine, even though it's a horse that just hasn't won, they're decent efforts. Some of those races are tough. It's another circuit that I follow.
Yep.
Sometimes you got to get a trip. You got to be the best horse. You got to have the right ride. All those factors. But it does seem like, speaking of factors, that you're getting some attention from the rider in here with Arad Ortiz aboard,
Yep.
and especially off those numbers. But I agree. I mean, certainly a horse that you would at least try to take on at even money.
Yeah, I would definitely try to defeat that one. A horse that we saw on the screen there briefly was away from the pony. It's the first-time starter, the 6th preemption in here. Lionel Reyes aboard this runner today for Saffie Joseph Jr. Lasix for the debut. Nice pattern of works. A barn that wins at a 20% rate first time out. And you're looking at 12-1 on the board. I was a little bit surprised to see that 12-1 price with these connections. I expected you were going to see somewhere around 5 or 6-1. Maybe it presents a little bit of value in here.
Yeah, it depends on how you want to read it and how you want to interpret it. Sometimes if it's a barn and connections that take money when
Yep.
they don't, sometimes that's telling you something. But yeah, it could also be, we've seen too, that some of those horses just get dismissed, and especially when you have a horse that's heavily overbet. Now, one of the things I do want to bring up with the distance is being 5.5 furlongs on the synthetic, and something we've talked about as we've been doing this show for, what has it been, like 2 months or so?
Yeah,
We've
we're
been
going on
doing
2 months
this?
here.
That the profile for these 5.5 synthetic sprints at Gulfstream Park can favor horses that tend to run from a little bit off
Yep.
the pace, which is a shift from the 5 furlongs. It's amazing what that extra half furlong does. So as far as, a first-time starter kind of having to close in there, and some of these other horses just in terms of the track profile, but at the same time, it doesn't look like there's many in here that have shown much in terms of early speed either. And it's not impossible to win on the lead, like, don't get me wrong, but just in terms of how the track plays and the track profile, you can sometimes see those horses come from a little bit further off the pace.
Yeah, you're taking a look on the screen there at the 1. That's Ace up her sleeve. Javier Castellano aboard this runner today. A horse that was going a route of ground on the turf and then said, okay, no, we're going to try the sprint that last out. Like you mentioned, this was one of those that came from out of it at just 5/8. Now they're going 5.5. I tend to wonder if you might get a good effort out of this horse. You're getting 6-1 on the board, so it's not too bad of a price. On a horse that hasn't been bad by any means, relatively consistent in those races, some of them against a little bit better company. And now you're looking at 7-1 on the board. That could be your value play in the race right now.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're going to have that big favorite, you can start making cases and value cases for many in the field. Such as the 4, the horse that's on the screen right now, I think is a little bit interesting just at the number. A horse that we haven't seen since the middle of their sophomore season, is now a 4-year-old, but also tough to take off those first 2 starts. Broke slow on debut, so you could give an excuse, and then showed speed going long, and then backed up. But it's so hard to tell what happened in that race because the horse is off 229 days. They have a steady series of works coming in. Could just be the right time and place for this horse that, again, has shown a little speed. Granted, it was longer, but could also be fit off those works and well met in here, and one that is likely to fly under the radar just given the connection.
Yeah, and definitely flying under the radar at that price at 20-1. A reminder for those of you following along after this, we'll go to Aqueduct to race number 2. They're at 11 minutes to post right now. I'm a little bit curious in here, Emily, about the odds on the 8 horse. That's Get By. This is a horse that was 15-1 in the morning line. You're bet down to 5-1 right now. To me, hasn't shown a ton, and you're coming in off the lengthy layoff into here. It is a barn that does okay off those long rests, but that's pretty significant action for a horse that, at least on paper, hadn't really shown a whole lot. Can you make a case here for Get By?
Well, yeah, I mean, just in terms of odds, and there's a couple things going for this horse.
Sure.
I mean, you have the class change. If you go back and look at this horse, I mean, they've drawn wide in four or five.
Yeah, a lot of the races are way out there.
So you can make some excuse as far as that being the reason for the trip and having to run on from off the pace. Horse tends to break slow. A couple of notes in there where the horse has been against the flow, been wide throughout. So has some excuses along the way. But again, a horse that has shown to kind of run from off the pace. It's coming off the layoff, and maybe even 5-1 is a little bit short on this type of horse.
Yeah, and with the action that Get By's taken is the action that the 9 Maryland is not taking. This horse 9-2 in the morning line. You're currently looking at 8-1 on the board. Has the potential to show a little bit of speed. You see the 5.5 furlong races over the course of last summer that weren't bad. The race 2 back was okay. And you get Jose Ortiz in the saddle. I'm actually surprised that this horse isn't taking a little bit more action, now currently sitting at 9-1.
Yeah, I think this horse will run well for all those reasons that you just mentioned. Has the synthetic form, has the foundation from the races this season, and it's just getting overlooked in this race because those synthetic races, now granted the summer isn't quite the championship meet, but we're in the closing part of this meet. So this isn't quite like, the January or February where they're going to run into some of these quality horses. So it could just stack right up on par, and with that foundation on their side, cutting back and over a surface that they're proven over.
All right, so if the 5 wins, it would beat me. I would not play the 5 in this race. The 2 horses I probably would look to is the 1 Ace Upper Sleeve, who I didn't like, that needed some encouragement going into the gate. And then I'm just curious to see what kind of run we get out of the 6 Preemption, because I was a little bit surprised there. But Maryland walking into the gate right now, so they're all in line here for the 3rd at Gulfstream, Emily, and let's see how this unfolds.
All right, well, the 6 broke slow. That was the
first timer.
Yeah.
The 1 broke much better than expected, actually, for me.
Yeah. I think, I'm surprised. Maybe from the rail, getting that Castellano, being a little bit more assertive today.
Yep.
The 4's up there. That's encouraging. It's sort of where I thought that horse would be. Doesn't seem like they're going real fast, though.
No. And the first timer raced up into contention after that slow break, too.
Yeah, so we'll be able to hopefully see. No, not too quick.
No,
this
not
distance.
at all.
Almost 23.
I wonder if the 1 has a chance to steal this. And the 5's on the outside moving now.
Yep.
Again, I'm not playing at 4-5. If they're going to beat me, they're going to beat me.
Yeah, sometimes they win. You just move on. Nothing from the 4, just no good, no excuse.
And I don't know if the 5 really wants to go on here. I'm still liking the trip of the 1 in this spot. The horse on the outside's running a pretty solid race too. And the first-time starter racing a little bit greenly, lugged in there at the top of the lane, but still running a respectable race for the debut thus far.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to come down to 5 or 3, and just a really strong finish on Ortiz. I think that made the difference today.
I would have lost money there, and that's fine. I wouldn't have bet the race. I would not have. I probably. I would have bet the 1.
I'm okay with that. With moving on. I mean, those are some opportunities you try to take on. When it doesn't work out, you can easily move on. We talked about this doing like the NHC coverage. Is you're not gonna hit everyone, and when it's kind of has to be your day. But as long as you're not making mistakes, right? And then it's easy because you're not gonna get everyone. You're not taking short prices on horses. You're not settling for numbers that you wouldn't take otherwise. And that is so much of the key in here. So when those horses at short prices win, there's plenty of races like race 2 at Aqueduct, 6 minutes to post.
Right, and the 5 was even all out to win there. Notes I would take out of that race: I did like the improved speed of the 1 Ace Upper Sleeve coming out of the gate. I did not like the way the horse needed the assistance going in the gate. You see the tight finish there, and we'll keep an eye on it just to make sure it was the 5. It did appear that it was 5-3 in that spot. The 6 Preemption, you do have some notes out of that, okay? You get away a step slowly there, then raced into contention. Looked to race a little bit greenly behind horses in the lane. I don't think you're going to see nearly the price in that horse for that second start out, because I did think it was a very respectable effort for that debut there out of the 6-horse Preemption. All right, this is the only race we're going to look at for Aqueduct today. This is the second race on the card. They're in the walking ring right now. It looks like they're going to get riders up here momentarily. It's a New York bred maiden race. They're going 6.5 furlongs in this spot. The 4 Ukrainian Princesses out of here, so it leaves you with a field of 6. The 5 Strange Fruit. Oh, nice name, Strange Fruit. Coming in off a little bit of a layoff into this spot. Off that last start there, I figured was going to be the favorite. Probably is a deserving favorite in here, and this is a horse that didn't run too poorly in that debut by any means.
No, it's tricky because the horse had a fast pace to close into, but they were also against the bias that day. People in New York love the bias. They love following that.
Oh, yeah.
And playing and upgrading horses, downgrading.
There's your order. Finish at Gulfstream. It was 5-3-1. Okay.
So I think that's part of the reason, but again, it did kind of have the race flow in their favor, but a pretty solid effort. And then in terms of race par, this is a slight step up in class. I know that slight step up in class is in play for a lot of these horses, so it kind of evens out the playing field a little bit. But again, those are just, like we talked about, having all those pieces of information, a horse that's 2-1, and a horse that closed first out, so you're taking a short price on a horse that could be a closer.
and it was given no consideration in the debut. Sent off at odds of 22 to 1, went in for 25. Yes, did they run a good race? Of course they ran a good race. Are you going to repeat that performance? I don't know. You can definitely look elsewhere in here. Maybe the 3-horse in here, you're currently looking also at 2 to 1, so co-favored in this spot. This is a horse that has a little bit more early foot to it, ran a little bit better race, but it's like, okay, you had a decent race on debut on January 12th. The race on February 11th was absolutely ugly, and then the race on March 3rd was not bad. So I guess you have to look back to that race 2 back and say, okay, well, bumped at the break, a little bit of a tough trip in there, and did the horse just decide to back out of it and say, okay, that's the end of the day?
Well, they ran a maiden special weight company as well, so probably the class just coming into play, and maybe the connections just figuring at that point, hey, we got a decent run out of this horse on debut, entering it for the tag. Let's keep the horse protected. Maybe this horse is better than we thought. They ran him, and they're like, no, we had the right idea with where this horse belongs the first time. So I think in terms of that, at the right level, again, a good second-place finish in that race. A little bit of a grindy finish, but on the track right now, pretty spirited warm-up.
Yeah, and again, went in for 25,000. The horse was sent off at odds of almost 9 to 1, so it wasn't that highly regarded. It wasn't like they were 8 to 5, 9 to 5 in there, and ran a decent race. So then we move onward and try to find some others in this spot and see what we can come up with. All right, the 6-horse Super Princess in here. This is a horse that raced for the 40 in that debut, was sent off at odds of 7 to 1. So the horse was a little bit highly regarded in there, and the horse was actually working quite well into that spot. But again, broke out of the 11 hole out of a field of 12 in there. Hung wide the entire way in that spot, and now you're back in for the same level, and there's only 6 in here, and you're getting 6 to 1. I think that's actually a decent price here on the 6 Super Princess. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, you could certainly make a case that the horse, you know, is better value, is coming out of that higher race par. As far as the odds, I just wanted to pull it up so we have it. Did take money that day, noting it not even just from the 7 to 1 odds, but it was a 12 to 1 morning line, so even a little bit more action off that. Getting it about the same today and finding that subtle class relief, just noting that higher race par last out.
Give me 5 to 1 on that horse over what you're seeing on the 2-horse, My Inner Voice right now, which is currently sitting at 7 to 2 on the board. This horse was claimed for the 25,000 in that first start. Yes, that was a race in the slot. The horse was claimed for 25. The horse was 45 to 1 in that race and ran okay. But now it's a trainer that doesn't win first off the claim. You're stepping up here, and this horse has taken more action than I think would be expected. 7 to 2 I thought was a little bit short for me on the 2 to play My Inner Voice. What about you?
Yeah, this horse has been live in all the pools right from the beginning. Was taking as much money in the early probables as much as the 3 and the 5, and I just found that really interesting because of the angles that you brought up, because it's so low percentage, and the fact that this horse was taking that money could be a bit of a tell, especially for connections that don't normally bet, and then it has floated up a little bit since. Now, going back to the debut, was kind of a sneaky good effort, because unlike Strange Brood, who closed into that fast pace, even though they were against a track profile, My Inner Voice closed ground into a slow pace. So there could be something there. There could be some intent. That horse intrigued me just kind of based on the action and based on what there wasn't much action and the connection. So I think there could be something there on the 2.
All right, you're looking at 8 to 1 on the 1. That's Northern Ballet in here. Jackie Davis riding this one today. This horse was, they think, well intended for the debut. Raced against the Maiden Allowance Company. Showed a little bit of early foot in that race and then gave way to finish 8th out of that field of 9. Been away since then. You're coming back here for the first start as a 3-year-old, but working consistently towards the return. I tend to wonder, I think they probably do send this horse away a little bit from the inside.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see why not. I don't know if this horse is quite quick enough.
Right, it may not be, right.
Yeah, they might not be, but I don't know if anybody in here is super quick either. I mean, none of these horses have really shown any early speed, so it would certainly be a wise strategy. Yeah, a lot of the times the pace in these races is super hard to predict because somebody's got to make the lead. None of these horses have shown that they really want to do so, but obviously somebody's got to be on the lead. So it kind of comes down to which horse does have a little bit more natural speed and which rider is willing to say, I'm going to go for it.
All right, and then as they circle behind the gate, before we get into our betting strategies for the race, the 7-horse Bobby Dreams, I'll just give a little bit of a comment too. This is a 4-year-old, and looking up and down the field, it's the only 4-year-old in the race. Everybody else is 3-year-olds, but this is a 4-year-old debuting here. So a little bit more time to get to the races for this one, maybe a little bit more maturity as well. You get the outside draw. It's a barn that doesn't really win at first asking by any means. The horse isn't given a whole lot of consideration either at 14 to 1. But again, a short field here. I'll be curious to see what we get. This horse may actually want to go a little bit longer as well, too.
I honestly, I have no idea. I need to see a race from this one.
I would, too.
I mean, having the maturity edge, certainly, their steady works, and it just could be, look, this horse, they are who they are at this point. There's no soundness issues at this point. We've just got to run them and find out. But the type of horse, I just got to see a race from first.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, so much like Even the Wind, who you said didn't show a whole lot of paper or a whole lot on paper in that debut and ran an improved race, that's kind of the route I'm going to go in here. I would probably play the 6 Super Princess right now at this spot. You're currently looking at 6-1 on the board. I think there's a lot of reasons why this horse can improve. You do get a shorter field in here today, and you do get a little bit better price. So that's the route that I would go, and then maybe try to hook up some prices underneath in the gimmicks. 6-1, not too bad of a price. If you're playing this race or kind of trying to shape anything around any horse or a few horses in here, who would your focus be on in this spot?
I'll follow the steam and go with the 2 because I felt the 3 and the 5 are just too short. The 7 I don't really know what to do with. I'm not crazy about the layoff on the 1. The case on the 6, I could certainly see that making sense and being some value there. But that's sort of where I'm going to go. Let's see what happens with this 2, just with that early action and then getting some drift. It might even see even a little bit more drift come post time. We shall see.
You don't love seeing jockeys running up to racehorses without the racehorse, so that's definitely not a positive sign there on the 1 Northern Ballet. But Jackie Davis jumped off this horse before loading in the gate. I do like the fact I'd rather a rider get off a horse, the horse get loaded into the gate, instead of them, and you see it time and again, they're just encouraging, and the rider's on its back, and the horse doesn't want to go. And then the second the jock jumps off, the horse walks right into the gate. So maybe they just said, we know this horse, and that's the move. And I hope that's the case for them for a horse like a Northern Ballet as well.
Yeah, it could be because these horses school at the gate and they just sort of know this horse is better. And then, for the jockeys, they got to take care of themselves as well. And they don't want to get banged up in there either. So, yeah.
You did see my inner voice walk in just fine, very professionally, so that's a definite plus for this one. I want to see how the 6 Super Princess loads up as well. Who are they giving some encouragement there, too? That's the 5, maybe. That looks like the 5 Strange Fruit. Not what you like to see out of the horse. That's the favorite either in this race. We'll see how the 6 walks in. It looks like the 6 so far, went in just fine. I'm going to take that as a positive, too. We'll see how the first time here, the 7 Bobby Dreams on the outside. And actually, that horse walked in just fine. So let's see how things unfold for the 2nd at Aqueduct. One off a step slow,
yeah, the 1 was off slow. Same thing with the 2. Same thing with the 3. And it looks like the 6. I think we kind of said, it was just, hard to say who was going to go. But the 6 right out in front, Super Princess, showing a little bit more speed today with that class drop. Hopefully the rider does
give a breather.
Well, that's not the time you want to take a breather, though. Not when you have some separation and letting your rivals catch up to you, though. Don't want to do that.
And let's see what happens here. I mean, I'll be curious because the horse cleared by 4 lengths early on. And now you're on the inside facing a little bit of pressure. Now we're going to find out if the horse is going to run on and battle or kind of back out of it. I kind of like the fact that at least you're battling on a little bit in this spot. The 3 ended up going off favored in here. Okay.
Yeah, the 3 ended up going off favored. Just took over the lead. The 7's chasing.
6 is done.
6 seems like they're done, backing up a little bit. The 5's starting to make a little bit of a move. The 1 has been scrubbed on throughout. 2 just might not be very good. They've been kind of pushing on this horse as well. But it seems like it's the race to win or lose at this point for the chalk, who's just kind of opened up on the others. The 1's given an honest try. They're all kind of trying back there, but not the strongest group. Even the 3 is going to be all out to finish despite being clear. And these are the type of notes that you'd want to make for the race, because I think sometimes, especially with this winner, these are running lines that people have a hard time dealing with. They'll be like, wow, that was impressive. The horse won by, it looks like 12 lengths.
Who'd you beat?
Line. Not even just who'd you beat, but the fact the rider's like, the horse is all out. It's not like the horse has a move forward. Like what you saw the top. Like there just happened to be nobody else there.
And then, like we mentioned with the 3, it was a good effort in that last out. The race 2 back was probably in just a little bit too tough there. The 5, neither of us really liked the 5 horse, and the horse is beaten 12 lengths. And that was a horse that went off at 8-5. There was potentially no value there. The 3 did take the action late, ended up going off as the favorite and getting the job done there in race number 2 at Aqueduct. All right, Emily, the last race that we have for today is a race number 4 at Tampa Bay Downs. It's a lower level claimer, $5,000 claimers here, non-winners of a race in the year. Scratch the 2, that's In the Loop. That was the horse that was your morning line favorite. Now the 4, Granger County, or the 4 Granger County was a morning line choice at 8-5, is your favorite on the board. You look up and down this race and, ugh.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. This is a horse claimed for 25, 2 starts back. They ran what didn't look like a bad race on paper in that last out. Now you're in for 5. I mean, there's red flags going off for me with this one.
Well, I mean, this entire race, you could drape a red flag over it. Because
That's right.
You have it's a 7-horse field, and you've got 5 of those horses that are coming back off layoffs, including the 6 coming back off a 506-day layoff. So, yeah, there's a lot of red flags going on in this field. But certainly the 4, I mean, you could see it because there's a class drop that's in play. The horses run some of those faster races, and I think maybe if you start backwards with some of these horses that have some recency. I mean, even number 1, Bam Bam Blue, this is an 11-year-old horse that really hasn't shown any form this year, so that one's tough to take as well. Maybe the 7.
He's 3-1.
and maybe the 7. It was a 2-1. Oh my goodness. Yeah, this is tough. This is a.
I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the name of the 7 either. I'm not. I'm just.
I'll go with the 7.
He's going to be referred. He's going to be referred to as the 7 for this race.
I could certainly see why the 4 makes sense, and the horse that if you have to pick somebody, this horse definitely feels like the safer way to go in this race. Though I don't know if that's necessarily the smart strategy.
Here's the thing about the 4. Okay, you're dropping in for 5,000. Maybe you get lucky and you've scared everybody off and they're saying, no, oh my gosh, no, something's got to be wrong with the horse. I'm staying away, I'm staying away, I'm staying away. And all of a sudden the horse runs impressively and is now starter eligible for the next 2 years. So, and somebody else may jump in and say, okay, I'm going to take the shot for that reason as well. Sometimes favorites win. John Walsh tells us that all the time. He said sometimes the favorite is just the best horse in the race. Even if this horse isn't to any of those efforts, might still be the best horse in the race. So maybe I'm going to get burned here. I would probably say the 4 is the horse that's going to win here. Race number 4 at Tampa Bay Downs. But
I think the 4. I think the 4 is the horse that and has the front row up still on.
Yeah, right. Scary.
The horse is definitely like the horse to beat because the layoff becomes an equalizer. As far as the drop, they claimed the horse for 25. Only got 1 start out of him. The horse has been laid up. I think at this point they could just be like, look, we're happy to win, and if somebody claims the horse, great. You know, we took our chances and things didn't work out. So I think there's some consideration from that point, and not necessarily being like overly red flag, but just the fact that the connections are like, for 5,000, we're ready to move on.
Right. I mean, to be 17-1, 23-1, or 37-1 in this bunch really isn't a great thing because, I mean, I can see the reason why behind the 6 because the horse has been off forever. You can see the reason why maybe behind the 8 because the last 2 starts weren't good. The races at Presque Isle actually last summer, they weren't bad by any means. So maybe the 8 of 39-1 provides a little bit of intrigue underneath in here, Emily, only for that fact. And the horse at the distance of 5.5 hasn't been too bad either. So there's a couple of reasons that maybe I could throw a few bucks underneath on that horse at 38-1. So, okay, I guess if I'm playing the race, I'm going to take the favorite at 6-5 and try to find some massive prices. It's definitely not going to be the 1 in here.
No, no.
The 7, again, this is a horse that's been facing that tougher company, and now you're dropping in for 5. This is an ugly race, and sometimes you say maybe you just sit out.
Yeah. I think that's probably the strategy here. I mean, the 7 just went into being the favorite for this race, and you can certainly see it. I mean, in terms of them having the edge in recency, that makes sense, all things considered in this spot. I was just looking at quickly the distance on the 8, and a lot of those races were way back. You have to go back to the juvenile season to find those races. So they've been having this one longer, has the double layoff lines. I'm willing to just watch this race. Sometimes you just have to.
I'm going to watch this race a little bit too, because like you mentioned, all right, you have the 1 Bam Bam Blue. You look back a little bit deeper in the lines. Everything is way above this level, and now you're running for the second time at this level after a bad effort last time out.
He's an 11-year-old horse. I mean, this. You know, a lot of his races that have been better were back when he was, I mean, even when he was 10, he was running fine, but it's Monmouth, kind of a different scene.
Yeah.
Just really hard to tell.
No, I can't do it for that horse. And again, if they slide through here and you're starter eligible for a year, because then you're done racing after your 12-year-old campaign. So it's one of those things for Bam Bam Blue. Granger County, like I said, most likely winner at 8-5. Okay. maybe 8-5 is actually a fair price on this horse. But again, it's those question marks. So yes, if I'm sitting there at home and I'm flipping through the forum, I'm flipping through the program and that, I'm saying I'm going to sit back and just watch this race at Tampa Bay Downs. And I guess what I'm hoping for to see in here is if the 4 were to run out of the screen and win by 8 to 10 lengths, and then now you're starting to come back and starter races, and maybe you string together a couple starter races, then maybe you're looking 60 days, 90 days down the line and saying, okay, they got away with one. But right now, today, at this time, I don't think I could play this race.
Yeah,
Emily.
I would. I think this horse gets claimed.
That would you'd have to think so, too. I mean, they're kind of nearing the end of the meet at Tampa Bay Downs as well. One note, just in, it's not a track that we're covering today, but it's a track that you cover each and every day. It's Oaklawn Park. They're on the track for race number 2. And the only mention I want to make, the track's sealed today. They were talking about getting a little bit of rain, but they are expecting a fast track tomorrow for the Arkansas Derby. That's an important note to take in regard. That track has had so much rain this season, too.
Yeah, it's tough. It can go hit or miss, but we have a lot of off days. And then, did you see Nancy's tweet this morning as far as the post time at Oaklawn Park?
What'd she say?
They moved it tomorrow to start at 12:15,
okay.
so a little bit earlier as well.
And I know I did talk to Nancy this morning too. She did say if there was any concern about weather that they were going to cut off training a little bit early tomorrow as well, to give them a little bit more time to get the track as ready as possible. And Oaklawn Park, I've been there on Arkansas Derby Day. They're going to have 70,000 people there tomorrow, and they put a lot of them in the infield. You saw a lot of those tents and that up there. So it is a lot of people in the infield. It's a really cool atmosphere. It's a big day, and they don't charge a ton of money for Arkansas Derby Day. I think it's $3 or $5 to go in. So it's very
awesome.
cool.
That's like you love to see it. That's the
they do a great
best,
job.
and that's why you get those big crowds. It allows people the least barrier to entry to get people in and have a good day. It's one of the greatest things about horse racing.
Yeah, it was very cool. Yesterday, I think they did free admission, like $1 program, $1 hot dogs. Again, get everybody in, expose them to racing there on those big days. All right, they're walking in the gate here for race number 4 at Tampa Bay Downs. Your favorite on the board, the 7 ended up going off favorite. And again, I'm going to refer to him as 7 because I'm not trying the name there. Even money on the board right now on this one. The 4 is currently sitting at 7-5. Okay, the 8 at 53-1 would intrigue me enough at this point to at least hope that this horse can run a few steps and not get beaten 30 in this spot. But the horse got beat 27 3/4 in that last out, so we'll see. But again, I would never. I'm not betting this race at all. I'm not betting this race with your money, Emily. Just I'm going to sit and watch.
I'm not giving you my money.
There you go. Maybe a 10-cent super would be what I'd put on this race. But you have to do that sometimes. Sometimes you just say pass.
Yeah. The race coming up at Oaklawn is a little bit intriguing. I mean, the horse that's currently favorite there, the 3, it is legitimate as far as where this horse fits on class and speed. But again, it's a short price on a horse that's a closer, so that's worth keeping in mind if you are looking at Oaklawn Park. I thought the 4 had a bit of a look at a price.
Yeah. All right, 7 horse did make the top here. My 8 horse is actually rating 3rd, so I'm getting way more run than I would have ever expected out of this horse. Where's the 4? Oh, the 4 is in between.
Horses,
okay.
Yeah.
22-2 for the opening quarter, so they're scooting along for this level as well too. And again, that one horse, another horse who we would have stayed away from, and my 8's going to get back up and get beaten 30 in here. Well, maybe not. He's kind of hanging in there. His head's cocked inward a little bit there, and he's had a wide trip. But the 7 was the horse that figured to be the control and speed. You have the 1 on the inside, the 4 on the outside, and nobody's running overly impressively by any means.
No. I think that we handicapped this race and decided to pass perfectly.
Yeah.
There's some people that have some roots in the race behind us. We'll hope that they're right.
Congratulations on your 3-5.
Sat on our hands.
and that's fine. My 8 horse only got beat about 12 to 14 lengths, so I'm going to take that as a victory in there. But I would have bet $0 on that race. And you do have to do that. The biggest thing they talk about it for those that play a whole lot of no-limit hold'em poker is the ability to fold and know that you have to fold often and stay out of hands. That would have been a fold race for me. There's no way I'm playing that race.
That was a pass. I mean, again, just look at those layoff lines, the short prices, and with so many other options on the wagering menu, there's other ways to go. Even though not for us today, but there are. Around the simulcast country.
All right, so Emily, here's the cool thing about Club Hawthorne Live. All right, you and I are sitting here today. We got Matt, we got Nate, and we got Jason for TV. We're all here today, okay? Know who's not here today? Dakota Schultz is not here today, and you know what that means? It means that we are bringing the show back here to Hawthorne next week. So we're going to do the show right here next Friday. So for those of you that want to come out and watch Club Hawthorne live, you're going to see us right here at Hawthorne Racecourse in the PointsBet Sportsbook next week. And the really cool thing about it, the TV guys and I are going to go back. We're going to visit with Larry Rivelli next Thursday morning. Two Phils, the horse that stands atop the points leaderboard for the Kentucky Derby, is here at Hawthorne training here. It's cool. There's some excitement to have a horse run in the Derby on the grounds.
Absolutely. It's so cool. And one of the things, I was down here yesterday. Well, you were working. I was hanging out down here.
You did some work, too. You were busy as well.
Well, that is also true. But when I was down here, I got to feel the excitement of being here. Lisa, right?
Yes.
Down here, you know, rooting, and everybody just so happy for the connections. And it's really cool to have kind of a hometown horse that has that expectations.
Yeah, so I sat with Larry during training yesterday for about a half hour, and we were just chatting about horses and about Two Phils and about the race and that. There were a couple questions that I asked him yesterday. I said, okay, first off, Larry, 20 horses in the Kentucky Derby. Do you care what your post is? He says, I don't care at all. He said, all I know is my horse wants to be covered up a little bit and run alongside another horse until you get to the top of the lane, and then you find out how good you are. Second, he said, in the Jeff Ruby Stakes, the one thing that he was worried about was that his horse was going to have to be set down for the drive and have to battle head and head all the way to the wire just to get those coveted points to get into the Derby. So he said he was more than relieved that they just ran right on by, and he said there was more than enough left in the tank after. But he said the horse came out of the race really well. Everything's going really well coming into this spot. The cool thing that we do here at Hawthorne, if you do have a stakes caliber racehorse like that, if they want to work in between races on a live race day and have a fresh track with no other horses on the racetrack, they can do that. So we'll see if Larry makes that choice as well.
That would be very cool.
But it's cool. He's a very personable guy, and it's cool that we're going to get some footage of the horse here next week.
I think it's great. I think it's a great idea to do it and take advantage of it. And obviously, you know, people love it too. I'm somebody that watches workouts and will dig in and try to find information that I can. So I think it's great. I think it's great all around. And, you know, just, again, being down here yesterday, just a love to root for the connections. Yeah, so you see at the bottom of the screen here, live from Hawthorne in the PointsBet Sportsbook, you are going to see that again next week. So that's going to be awesome. We're going to be right back here at Hawthorne Racecourse. You can come join us.
It is. Yeah, come join us. Come hang out by us. If you want to come and you want to say hi while we're on the air, we're going to say hi to you on the air. So that's just fine. But it's a really cool setup. So, Emily, great show today. Whole lot of fun. Great racing tomorrow. You're covering, by the way, just so everybody knows, you not only cover Hawthorne, you do a lot of focus on Oaklawn, and it is a really good card tomorrow, too.
It's a great card, and it's posted on the Hawthorne website, just a normal spot where you go and find the analysis for the race day. All those races are posted. Should be some opportunities on the card. 14 and 13 races.
Lots. 13 tomorrow, yeah.
13 and 14 down in Florida, right. Got to separate there. All of that's on the website, so follow there. And then we'll be back here Sunday. Again, you'll be working and I'll be hanging out. I'm going to come down and there's going to be a group, and we should have nice weather and be outside, and looking forward to it.
And one thing to mention, again, we do have that online contest that starts on Sunday. So if you want to get into the online contest, again, it's free to sign up for. Go to the website. You see it right there on the screen, hawthorneracecourse.com. Mythical $2 win play show wagers every Sunday and Thursday. And Emily, again, not only is it free, the person that wins is going to get some nice prizes. One of them an NHC seat, so that's very cool too.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, free, as my good friend Bruce Meyer, Oracle over at Canterbury, would say,
Love
free.
Bruce.
He would say free is always an overlay, so you got to get in there.
Bruce is a guy that plays a lot of contests. He's a great guy. I actually keep quite in touch with him quite often there. So very cool to hear.
One of my good friends.
So thank you, everybody, for tuning in today to another edition of Club Hawthorne Live. Again, you're going to see us right here next week for another edition as well. Live racing every Sunday and Thursday here at Hawthorne. So for Emily Gullikson, for Matt, Jason, and Nate from TV, Dakota, we hope you're enjoying your spring break, but we're going to see you here as well next Friday for another edition of Club Hawthorne Live. Good luck.